Welcome. Welcome to the first of the geography virtual lessons. I am Peter Franken. I teach geography at Pretoria Boys High School, and I'd like to tell you how passionate we are about our subject. And geography is a subject that I always say to myself and my classes with this statement: if you don't know where you are, how can you know who you are? So as much as your other subjects like mathematics and science and English and Afrikaans, I think geography is the, as I can put it, the mother of all subjects. The topic that I'm going to speak to you about this morning is rural settlements. It forms part of your exam detailing question 3 from the final exam, and that section is divided into two. One being rural settlements, which I'll be doing with you today, and then the other urban settlements. If we advance to the first concept that we would like to look at, the definition of settlement geography. The key thing here, you would see I've underlined two words here. The act of settling, I will show it to you here, that word there, the act of settling, and then the place. Why this is important is particularly for those of you who are looking to go into careers such as town and regional planning, architecture. All of these have a very, very definite plan and a purpose in terms of geography. So it's not just the content, but it is the understanding of why people moved somewhere, why they chose to settle down. And in the settling down process, I'd like you to think of it much like a bottle of water in which you put some sand in that bottle of water, and then as the sand slowly sinks to the bottom, that is a settling process. So settlement is a process and a place. Two very, very important definitions here. The one is the term site, and this particular site factor is the reason why people settle somewhere. The key word. The key word here is this word here, physical. It's the decision, the choice people make to live somewhere. It is absolutely important. I will be going through the three main points of site, namely water, flat land, fertile ground, and high ground for security reasons. If you look here, water is seen as a site factor, and on these three particular pictures at the top here is a traditional water fountain, a tap, and people would often have chosen to live near a water source. In this picture on the top right-hand side of the slide is a river, and for those of you living in some of the more rural areas of South Africa, you will often find towns that from their name you can pick up the reason, the site reason that they had for settling there. So an example like Nelspruit, from the Afrikaans spruit, the first people that lived in that area or any other area, water is an essential part. If you have to look at how water is a source of life, that would be the prime reason for deciding to live somewhere. The second reason, the three pictures show here flat land. Now, this picture here is a picture of a beef farm in South Africa. Here is a maize farm in the Free State and a maize farm in the Northwest Province. All three of them, the reason, and I come back to the reason idea, the reason for them deciding to stop, put down their roots, build a farmhouse, and live there is a flat land. Now, I think you need to tell yourself why flat land is important. And this basically comes down to what makes a farm successful. And if it's flat, the one thing that you need to look at is it makes farming easier. What I mean by easier, if you have technology, if you have implements, you wouldn't want to plow up and down a gradient or a slope. You would want to make it as easy as possible. That is why after water, relief is probably the second most important factor in deciding where you should settle. The third reason is the word fertile. Fertile is a difficult word. Even in trying to find a good image for you to understand that, my understanding of fertile is it's good land to grow in. So this picture here showing the plant just sprouting out of the ground, you can get infertile land, which is the opposite of fertile. So here you might find on the left-hand side, that's fertile land shown by those plowed fields. And on the right-hand side, you would find infertile. Although it looks green, it's not suitable for farming. So where would the farmer choose to live? Probably on the left-hand side of the photograph. The next factor is a really, really interesting factor. If I can show you these two pictures, this particular slide here is taken in Israel. And in Israel, there is a place called Masada. It has a bit of a myth and a legend about it, but what I'd like you to look at is, say, from a geomorphology point of view, can you recognize this particular outcrop of land here would either be a mesa or a butte? And then here in this Indian example here on this second photograph, these people, not today, but way back in time, have chosen to live there because of security reasons. So they chose to live at the top. They chose to live at the top so that they could defend themselves against any intruders. Maybe not today, but in the past, it was one of those original reasons why people decided to settle somewhere. So to recap, you have a site reason. It's a decision that you made based on the four basic principles: water, flat land, fertile land, and a security reason. There are many others, but initially what you would be expected to do is to recognize that that is the choice, the reason why people decided to make or build a house somewhere, to settle down. The second definition, the situation of a settlement. This one, wow. If we can master this one, I would really, really be happy. In my 35 years of teaching, it's the one definition that we've struggled with. Key word here is the following in the second sentence. It talks about position and it talks about the relation. So if we talk about the situation of a settlement, there are two things we need to look at. And if we have a look at the example that I want to use here, I've taken the map of Gauteng. And in Gauteng, here we are here recording at the SABC studios in Johannesburg. I come from Pretoria, which is a little bit north in that Gauteng province. And to describe the situation of Johannesburg, if you look at the notes here, this word here, relative, it's a very, very difficult word. Relative is not your uncle or your aunt. Relative is a comparison. You compare one place to another. So let's have a look at Johannesburg's situation. Now, we do it in two ways, two really important ways. One, we compare it to other places on the map. and we use things like words like north or south, central, those are all terms which tell us about the situation of a particular area. So Johannesburg, if we look at Johannesburg here, it has what kind of situation? So if north is at the top of the map here, south is at the bottom, let me get my west and east right. West is there, east is there. Johannesburg is in the southwest of Gauteng. Is it centrally situated? No. Midrand might be centrally situated. Pretoria, on the other hand, here up in the north, it is in the north of Gauteng. So that is a word we can use to describe the situation, not the physical, not water, not mining. It's just a description of one place compared to another. When you look at the second part of situation, then you take into account any transport links. So in your exam, be very careful. When describing site and situation, the situation is only north, south, east, or west, and then transport. So if you go back to the slide and you have a look at Johannesburg and Johannesburg's links, Johannesburg is linked by N1 north-south. It's linked by an N2. It's linked by numerous roads. So it has a very, very good situation. Does Pretoria have a lesser of a situation? I would say yes, because we have not forgotten, but what is the other way which makes Johannesburg's situation so good is that it has an international airport. OR Tambo Airport, it connects Johannesburg to how many places across the world? Thousands. So its situation is excellent. Some places that do not have good transport links have a bad situation. Those who are located on the outskirts of an area do not have a good situation. So to recap, the first two decisions, the first two principles that you have to grasp is the term site, which is a physical reason, and then the term situation is a comparison between the place you're looking at and how it fits into the wider scenario. So that's the first two parts of settlement and the understanding of settlement. We're going to have a quick look at an exercise to illustrate and to just see if you can work that one out. On our diagram, we have 4 places to choose from. I will circle them for you. There's place A, place B, place C, and place D. Question at the top says, advantage, disadvantage of living at those 4 places. It is an exam type question. It can be a paragraph question. It can be a 4 times 2 equals 8 question, where question 3 of your final paper. To answer this question, I will do it on the screen here for you. And a little bit of a tip. If you are stuck with answering a question in the exam, the most obvious thing is don't panic. Don't panic. This is a golden rule that I have used with the boys in my school and with personal experience. 2 things. Start off with starting with what do you know, your own knowledge. Now, don't go and say, I know nothing. Don't do that. Just have a look at the picture. What do you know from the picture? Well, first of all, it tells you where hard rock is. Will that rock be fertile or infertile? Probably not. Would you want to live there? No. This kind of rock here might be a bit difficult, shale, but it tells you it weathers to form soil. So if we look at that one, would you like to stay there? Yeah, that for me, personally, might be a good place to be. Some more fertile soil, the word alluvium. If we want to do a little bit of gemorphology revision, alluvium is a word to describe the sand that is carried by a river. Here's some forests we can use. Here's a track, and just to give you a heads up here, the track is a situation choice. Why not site? Because it refers to a transport route, not something physical. Then if you overlook, you possibly might overlook here in the bottom left-hand corner of the picture and right-hand corner of the picture are 2 lines of latitude. So what? They have a very important part to play, because if you go back to your microclimate, you will know that north-facing slopes in the southern hemisphere are warmer than south-facing slopes. So is this a settlement lesson? Yes, it is. But geography allows you to incorporate everything, to have a fully fledged understanding. And I think why our subject is so important at university, it relies on the scientific process of seeking answers. The why is it there? Where is it? What is it? And when you start with your own knowledge, if that still doesn't help you, this sounds like a contradiction. Ask another question to answer your question. Seems like a paradox? Seems like something, no, can't ask another question. A question deserves an answer. But if you don't have the answer, you will then now say, what do these 2 lines of latitude tell me? You will see that the one is further south, and that gives an indication of north-facing and south-facing. So the advantages and the disadvantages you would look at, I'll go through some of them with you. Place number A, is it good? I think it would be really good because there's fertile soil. But on the other hand, what's so bad in living at the bottom of a valley? From your microclimate, where do frost pockets form? Where do katabatic winds blow? They blow at nighttime in winter down the sides of the valley. So place A has got some positives, place A has got some negatives. Place B is, let me just check here, is facing south. So from a microclimatology point of view, not very good. Place B, however, is far from the floodplain. That's not bad. You don't want your house washed away. You want water, but you don't want your crops flooded. Not a bad thing if you want to choose where to build your farmhouse. Place C here, that is north-facing. Not a bad place. You want warmth in summer, but exposed right at the top of that particular hill. Place D, on the other hand, good things about place D. Let's just indicate place D for you, that one there. It's not close to the river. It's got some fertile soil, but it could be prone to flooding. So what's the answer? The answer is your justification of what you've looked at. This is geography. You take the evidence from the diagram. You look at it. You critically analyze it. You say to yourself, like a hypothesis that you're doing for your SBA, the project that you're busy doing and have to hand in, I suppose, once you're back at school. There are hypotheses, so we can hypothesize, and we just need the proof. That is the important thing here. So what is my choice? There's no personal choice of preference here. I probably would go for place D. There are advantages and disadvantages, but I think the advantages would outweigh the disadvantages. What is the situation one here? If I can just finish here. This dirt track that we see running along here, which one of these towns have the best situation? I pause there deliberately. It's not its site. Which one is the best situation? Place A is on a track. Place A, you can walk to the closest village. And then the second thing, place A is in the bottom of the map, the southern part of the map. Place B is in the western part. D is in the northeastern part. So those are situation terms. Careful, careful. I cannot emphasize it enough that you make the differentiation between the two. Really, really careful on that one. There are some other factors, just to go through them. Just to show you a couple of other reasons for that. On the picture here, there are two pictures. The one on the left-hand side here, I'll just mark it for you. That is headgear of a platinum mine in the Northwest Province. That platinum mine attracted people to choose to live there or to start the economic factors for starting up because of gold. So gold is a physical reason for attracting people. Even if there's not enough water, even if there's not enough flat land or fertile land, here the primary activity is mining. And mining is, gold is an attraction. The left-hand side picture, hopefully one of you one day might get there. And to those of you in Mpumalanga, if you haven't visited Pilgrim's Rest, which is the picture on the right-hand side, this is the old mining village that has been set up. It's not mining gold anymore, but it has now become a tourist attraction. But from a site point of view, the reason people move to Pilgrim's Rest, it's quite tricky. If you've driven there, there's a very, very narrow pass to get in it from Graskop and from Sabi, but it is the attraction of gold. So it's another physical reason for choosing to live somewhere. Any guesses for this particular place? Let's go with what we know. This is a harbor. Which harbor? I'll give you some more clues here. It's the busiest harbor in Africa. Yes, we can also get some accolades. It's not just the Americans who have the biggest and the best. The Nigerians might have Lagos, but this is good old Durban in KwaZulu-Natal. It is a harbor that attracted people here. Very, very nice picture. The harbor entrance is here. It has very good flat area for loading or quaysides for ships to disembark. So the choice for choosing Durban, not the Golden Sands beach, not Ushaka World, because it's not there yet. But the most important choice is where do we harbor, where do we overnight, where do we exchange, where does international trade start? If you look at the picture, if I can just do a little bit of geomorphology with you at the same time, can you see evidence on this photograph of why Durban might struggle as a harbor? I'll give you a bit of a heads up. These places that I'm marking with X, those are sandbanks. So those sandbanks, can you see they show up lighter on your screen? Those are collections of sand that is being carried down by this river. Now, why is that bad for a harbor? It makes it shallow. And shallow harbors are not good for shipping, particularly the ships that are now plying our seas. They have a displacement. Displacement is a word for how deep they sink into the water. And Durban, although it's the busiest, it also has some of its problems. But another physical site, another physical choice for that particular settlement. Interesting one, the next slide. Where is this following one? Chinatown, top left. Chinatown, this is the Chinatown in Cape Town, okay? And bottom one here is a spaza dealer, a general dealer, a Somali family that have put up a general store in Soweto in Johannesburg. Why did they choose that? Why do people, when they move, why do they choose people with the same customs, the same language, the same religion? Not because they feel better or they feel superior or they don't like you. There is just some kind of comfort in having in a strange environment, often a hostile environment, where everyone who speaks the same language, you can converse. So a choice, a sighting choice, although not a physical reason, this one, you'll find this across the world. In New York, there's a Chinatown. In New York, there's a Little Italy. And then a place that I've visited in Singapore, it's actually become quite a tourist attraction. In Singapore, the people who have left India have set up a pocket, an area where their businesses are thriving. The Indians in Singapore live together, and now there are tours to this particular spot. So the choice is a custom, a religion, somewhere where people feel comfortable. Okay, so not just a physical choice, not just a situational choice, but there are other choices in which you can make to settle somewhere. And then really close to home, something that is very dear to my heart. I don't know if you know where this picture is. This picture is taken down in the Western Cape. On the right-hand side, is an area designated according to the apartheid system where only people of color, black people, colored people, Indian people were meant to live. Did they have a choice? Not at all. Do they still have a choice? I would put it to you, no. I think in the 20 years that we've had since our 1994 elections, I think those choices, economic choices, have become even harder. And here, the people on this side here, where I've put the X, there's no choice here. And then here, on this side here, on this side of the picture, look at the unused land. And there are many pictures from Cape Town where you would find a settlement in Hout Bay, a settlement that reaches up to near Constantia, that kind of housing, and then have a look how broad and open it is on the right-hand side. So political decisions, racial decisions, our history, particularly in South African settlements, we have a long way to go to try and fix this. But looking for a reason why they settled here, was it their choice? If you look at the people of District 6, did they have a choice to move to Mitchell's Plain? No. Luckily, in some ways, this is being changed, but in my mind, I think that's far too slow. And a point that would be raised, I think, in one or two of our other topics when we get to other parts of settlement geography. Point number 2. So if the first section is we looked at site and situation, next one we're going to decide, is this a rural or an urban settlement? Here, this word here, that word there. I'm very cautious when I go through this here. In the text at the bottom, you will see that the textbooks, the professors, the learned people will differentiate between these two types of settlement based on an economic activity. So that economic activity here for rural is primary. And just to do a little bit of EMS or some economic terms for you, primary means, let's put it down for you here, a primary activity would be farming, fishing, forestry, and mining. Those are the 4 factors which classify primary activities. So if you're a farmer, if you're a fisherman, a forester, or you work in a mine, your settlement, your home, is classified as a rural area. In an urban area, you'll see these secondary, tertiary, and quaternary activities here. A very brief example for you there would be the following. Secondary is a manufacturing. Tertiary is a service industry. And quaternary is a seriously new definition, and it has to do with research. Please don't do the following. I have had lessons where I start off and I say, give me an example of a rural area. And the boys put up their hand and they go, Soweto, Mamelodi, Atteridgeville, Soshanguve. No, the word rural is not a derogatory term. It is not a swear word. It simply means a different way of life based on an economic activity. Across the world, there is great conflict between people living in urban and rural settlements. It's an issue that might even lead to social and economic class issues. But for the purposes of the definition, please stick to those points. Primary is farming, fishing, forestry, and mining, and urban is secondary, tertiary, and quaternary. Just to wrap up, just to quickly show you where I need to be, would be my next slide. I need to just advance that next slide, which I'm not sure where to advance that next slide, but I need to show you a picture of some rural and urban activities just to finish off the section. Just a method. How do we classify rural settlements? We work on pattern, we work on size, and we work on function. We'll get to those points a bit later. You can classify these according to size. In the next lesson, I'm going to start off with here at the bottom and show you how to classify people in terms of, not people, apologize, settlements in terms of their size. And here's a couple of pictures on a rural settlement. Left-hand side, province, Limpopo. Look familiar? Yes, to those of us who live here in the northern provinces. This is a rural settlement. Even though there are houses here, I think the majority of people either are unemployed or struggling, but they are mainly involved in either farming for themselves, something called subsistence farming. Here on the right-hand side, the picture here is an American farm, a farm in the Midwest. It's commercial farming, but still a rural settlement. Here's my rural village in the Limpopo province. This is on the way to the Kruger National Park, just before Hoedspruit as you drive through the Abel Erasmus Pass. And looking at it from the top, yes, it has an urban function. Here's a school, and we can go into our map work to see how we identify that school. But the majority of people living in this particular settlement does farming or is involved in farming. And then the last slide here, this is the heart of South Africa. This is Johannesburg. This is the studios where we are recording these lessons for you. And urban settlements, very, very different. Not only in terms of the size of the building, this particular building here you'll see, and the tower, we're going to, in the urban settlement lessons, we're going to describe them to you, look at their land uses, but urban settlements, very, very different. I hope you have enjoyed the lesson. I hope you have taken into account the important things about site and situation, and then the second definition, how do we differentiate between rural and urban. Thank you very much. It was a great pleasure, and we hope to see you again.